Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Multipliers Podcast. I'll be your host for today. My name is Mehdi, and it is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed guest, Roberto Costa, the Global Head of Luxury and Fashion Investment Banking at Citi. Roberto, thank you for joining me on today's podcast.
My pleasure, and thank you very much for having me.
Why don't you start by telling us a bit about yourself?
Look, as you know, we are friends, so you know that I'm Italian. So I started investment banking almost 30 years ago. And then having an Italian name, a surname, the most logical thing was to work for luxury and fashion and lifestyle. So I started in Banca Commerciale Italiana, then Goldman Sachs, then back to Italy for Mediobanca, and now in Citigroup since 7 years. I live in Milan, although it's better to say that my family lives in Milan because clearly I'm traveling a lot all around. And I have a daughter and a son, plus a dog at home with us.
Well, we don't get to see you that often, so every time you come to our part of the world, we feel really lucky.
No, you know that every time I'm here, it's really a pleasure to come to see you.
Thank you, Roberto. Just want to ask you about the luxury and the fashion industry in general.
Yeah.
I'm sure that over the last couple of years since COVID, things have changed. So you as an expert, everybody's curious to know what is happening right now.
I think that in reality, the change started more than a couple of years ago and has to deal with the fact that the boundaries of what could be defined luxury have changed. So nowadays, luxury has to deal with culture, with really a way of people to show who they are, but in a very, let's say, I want to be who I am, for the good or for the bad, as regard how I feel, how I go out, and what I wear. And I think that in this case, one of the most interesting things is how Remo Ruffini, when Moncler bought out Stone Island, announced the deal, saying this is beyond luxury. Exactly because it was a way to create something that, as I told you, has to deal more with culture than with the pure show-off.
How so?
Yeah, so now the thing I think that has changed. I think a good example of this is, for example, Golden Goose, where basically if you talk to them, the CEO Campara, who is very, very good and has a clear view about the future, is saying, look, you need to be happy with both what is working with you and your imperfections. And you need to be comfortable about this. So I think that this is the most important thing. So this has to deal with the behavior of people. Then there is the economic situation. So it's clear that over the last couple of years, as we all know, there has been a change. So China clearly more on a downbeat scenario, and US due to the fact that the majority, if not all, the fiscal help is now over. Clearly you got a situation where some people that were able to buy something because they have this extra money, now this extra money are not there, or they think that are not there in the future, and so they need to keep what they have. So from a pure consumption point of view, whatever is, let's call it logo-driven, now is suffering. Because the aspirational part of the consumption has been something linked to extra money more than with the stable money. And so the people that used to have this extra money now, and again, There is nothing to, it's not for the good or for the bad, it's simply what it is, are not willing anymore to spend. And in fact, I think that if you look at the logo of the different brands, the bigger the logo, the more they are suffering. Why? Because logo is typical or is typical to do with aspirational consumption. So I have a logo, I want to tell you that I could afford, I want to wear that logo. And as you know, nowadays, the real successful part of luxury is the so-called quiet luxury, i.e. the Brunello Cucinelli. So you can know that someone is wearing Brunello Cucinelli, but it's not based on logo. You need to know the product. So it's not that there is a logo very easy to be read and to be recognized as I'm wearing a Brunello Cucinelli.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the results of the different brands, I think that right now the quiet luxuries ones are the ones that are doing better.
So do you see, is there like a revival, let's say, or how is that affecting M&As?
I think that's a very interesting question. And I will keep it in two parts. So is there a revival? It's a very interesting question because I think that nobody is going to reinvent anything.
Okay.
So the fact is that if you look at the story, there are some period where a brand or a style are in great demand. Then there is a brand or a style fatigue. Another brand or another style is going to be in demand, and so on and so forth. So I think that also this quiet luxury thing will probably have a certain life. So maybe, I don't know if it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but maybe at a certain point in time, it will be less in demand. Going back to the second part of your questions, I think that probably there's going to be a new normal in terms of growth. Let's call it 6-7% growth, which is still a decent growth. Yeah, so it's not that. But it's not going to be a double-digit growth, or better. As usual, 6-7 is the average. And so you will have someone growing much more than this and someone growing lower than this. So based on this, I think that the M&A as a way to accelerate this growth, because you are going to buy customers, you are going to buy market share, is going to be there. Which is good. It's good for me. It's good for
It's good for the bankers.
For the bankers, for sure, but also I think for the system, because I feel that it's clear that more and more the investments are going to be important, and the investments are going to be, think about the real estate. I mean, you have seen the recent news about, Kering buying in Milan for 1.3 billion. So it's clear that if we think, and then let's see, but if we think that being able to do such investment in real estate is a condition in order to have a brand, a successful one, it's clear that you need to have a larger group in order to do this. And at the same time, I think that this is important because I feel that in a situation, in a moment where unemployment could be an issue, luxury is clearly creating instead employee offers. And this is very important because it's good for the economy, it's good for the young generation, it's good for the people that are working in the, let's call it the luxury chain. And I feel that one thing that is pretty clear is that whenever a brand has bought out another brand, people are going to remain there. The one that are manufacturing, the one that are really able to have made the fortune of the brand in the past. And so again, these are kind of deals where the sum of the part is a positive one, also from, let's say, the employment and the kind of keeping the know-how there. The example of this is whatever the French groups has bought out, for example, in Italy, is not that they moved the factories. They have kept the people there, and they are very keen because there is a clear know-how, and you don't want to lose this know-how, because without the know-how, you wouldn't have the products, and so you wouldn't have a successful brand.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And going back to the whole evolution, let's say, of luxury, and nowadays we see a lot about experiential luxury and experiences. So can you emphasize a bit about that?
I think that, first of all, probably it goes back to what we have discussed at the beginning, i.e. the boundaries of the luxury, of what is luxury, becoming different from the past, and having luxury more a lifestyle in the sense of something that is going to stay with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. From this point of view, experience is probably the most important part. Mm-hmm. Experience means not only soft and hard luxury, because wearing something, you are part of an experience, but means traveling, dining, means the hotels and so on and so forth. And this is the part where obviously the experience is even to a certain extent stronger and easier to be remembered. And again, think about LVMH. So LVMH, and clearly, I mean, they are very successful with their own strategy. They go from soft luxury to hotels. And at the end, the customer is part of an ecosystem. It doesn't mean that the client knows that he's part of an ecosystem. But at the end of the day, whatever is there is part of that, and whatever is there is thought in order to be successful. And I think that this is a clear example of this. At the same time, I feel that due to this evolution and the fact that the experience is more and more important, even the smaller brands, if they have a right strategy in place, are able to become bigger and bigger. Not necessarily in terms of numbers, but for sure in terms of perception. And perception will bring fidelization by the customers, and so will means more sales in the future.
What would the right strategy be?
I think that from this point of view, one of the most interesting one is Acne Studios in Swedish, and the fact, for example, that they used to have, and then now they are back with the Acne paper. So is a, let's call it a magazine, that is talking about culture. And through this, you don't do a marketing effort about your own products, but you are talking to the same community that likes your product about different things. And this is able to create a community. And so people are part of this community, and at the end of the day, they are also customer of the brand. At the same time, going back to one example that we discussed before, if you think about Golden Goose, now, if you go to some of their own shops, you can see that they build an ecosystem, for example, because basically they have, in some of their own shops, they have a space where you are able to bring there your sneakers, no matter if they are Golden Goose or other brands, and basically they refit your own sneakers. And this again is a way to create a community, because you build something that is going to last. I wouldn't say forever, because obviously there is a limit to what they can do, but people are able to stay close to what that pair of sneakers is able to remember to them, because maybe they were in a particular situation or so on and so forth.
Nostalgia.
Exactly, what in Italian we call nostalgia. And through this, you are able to create a community, as we discuss, and the community is going to stay. And if at a certain point in time you want to diversify your offer, i.e., for example, from a particular product, you want to go or to offer another product, having this community, you have already a base of clients that are there and like what is the brand and what are the messages and what is the DNA of the brand. So it's easier to offer also these new products. So I think that this kind of experience is able to make the stronger even stronger, because again, they are the ones that are able to afford the investment, but is able also to help the smaller to become bigger, because it offers a way to create a larger base of customers, and then open new verticals within the luxury space. So you can think about the design, you can think about dining, you can think about travel, maybe travel, I don't know, to the North Pole or to certain particular area of the world. So offering something that is different compared to a more general kind of travel. So again, is a way to enlarge what the definition of luxury or lifestyle in terms of business is.
Speaking of traveling to perhaps the North Pole or anywhere else, how is luxury and fashion changing according to geographies?
Yeah.
And do you see any particular geographies where things are moving in a particularly interesting direction?
That's another very interesting question, and thanks for that. I think that if you look at the evolution of luxury, it's clear that has been Asia, because Europe and US were already there and are going to stay there. Then we all know that China and Far East has been a driver of the recent or not even recent growth. So, I mean, more than 10 years now. Middle East, really in the middle. So, interesting market. But clearly, whenever we spoke about a percentage of population, obviously, if you apply this percentage to 1 billion people, it's very different if you apply to this percentage to a lower number of people, because it's clear that lifestyle luxury is not for 100% of the population. So you always have to think about a smaller percentage. And so numbers are important. And so if you think about where the numbers in terms of population are, India. If you think about where there is a new growth in terms of, sorry, not a new, because it's not new, but there is a significant growth, again, it's India.
India.
Now, is India going to be the next China or the next Far East for luxury? I feel that nobody, or for sure, I don't know. I feel that India will be even more important for what you referred before, the experiential luxury. So maybe it's not soft luxury, maybe it's for lodges, for hotels, for dining. And then, anyhow, whenever this kind of ecosystem will start to be put in motion, the rest will come. So India is going to be the next phase of luxury. I feel that is not clear yet what are going to be the drivers of this growth. So it's going to be the same as used to be in China, malls, and having the big city become the center, and then having the Chinese people coming to Europe, making experience with luxury, and then going back and buying both in China and in Europe. Now, setting aside obviously the COVID period, maybe for India will be different because different culture, different kind of population, also in terms of what they want to do. But for sure, this is going to become an important driver of the growth. At the same time, whenever we talk about the luxury from a geographical point of view, we need to take into consideration that the typical luxury customer is one who is traveling a lot. And so it doesn't mean that if a population will become an important customer, this means that also the country per se will become an important customer. Because again, there could be a first phase where they are becoming important because they are traveling for tourism and they become customer. At that point, they increase their knowledge of the product, of the brands, and going back home, they will bring this kind of experience. So there could be also this situation where maybe Indian or whoever is going to be the next driver for the luxury space, for the luxury industries, will become important because of traveling. And we go back to the point, i.e. the experience, because traveling is part of the luxury experience or is the driver for luxury, i.e. you start traveling per se, not because you want to buy something, and then all of a sudden traveling you also buy something. So I feel that it's a market, it's a customer that is evolving. But again, I think that the traveling is going to be one of the main driver of this kind of expansion.
This is a good segue into something that you briefly mentioned when you were talking about this, the hotelier and the lodge. And we were seeing more and more luxury groups that are moving in that direction.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, do you think that hospitality is going to be the new way to captivate customers and new way to generate revenues and to enhance the brand?
I really think so. And I think that this has to deal with, first of all, as we said, creating the ecosystem. So you become part of something, maybe without knowing that doing so you will become part of this ecosystem. But you go to a particular hotel and you find the products of a particular brand, from beauty to soft luxury. At that point, you become a customer because you see the same kind of style, you see the same kind of experience. And then there is a second consideration that I think is relevant here. So think about the evolution of the duty-free. So the duty-free in the past has been, duty-free at the airport, has been successful. Let's put it this way. You got a captive customer. So the customer was there because the customer needs to take a plane. And so he has no choice. He needs to go to the airport. It's not that. The customer go there and maybe is going there a couple of hours in advance. And it's interesting because there are also from this point of view, the different kind of customers from geography have different kind of habits. So for example, Far Easter, go to the airport 3 hours in advance. Now, 3 hours, a lot of time to be spent there.
That's what I do, always 3 hours in advance.
Me too. Mm. And so, I mean, you are looking around and you became a customer. Now, this thing is probably less of a case now because you can stay 3 hours in an airport and in the meantime, you surf internet and you order with a click. So maybe you see in the airport the product, but then you buy because of a click. Maybe because the price is lower, but also because at the end of the day, if you buy at the airport, you need to bring with you. Instead, it's going to be delivered. So there is this kind of evolution. Now, if we go back to the hotelery, to a certain extent, is a captive customer. Is less captive compared to an airport, but still, if you have a room in one of the hotel, anyhow, you spend there 10 hours, 11 hours. And so if there is a shop there, at the end of the day, you are going to pass by maybe twice a day, maybe 3 times a day. So I feel that this way of capturing what could be defined a captive, in the good sense, customer is there.
It's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that is the only way, but I think that he has a bit of similarity with the fact that if you want to sell something, you need to get attention. You get attention through the brand, you get attention through the marketing, or you get attention because you have, I wouldn't say over, but a bit of exposure. And so if you are in a place, that's a way to get a bit of exposure to something, if it's pretty often in front of you.
In terms of exposure then, do you think there will be new verticals that luxury groups will be looking into, like cars, for example?
It's another very interesting question. Now, the bigger verticals in terms of sales within the luxury is exactly the cars one. And it's easy to understand why. A bag, anyhow, true, you sell more bags than cars, but at the end of the day, the price is much, much higher, so still. And so cars are already big in terms of luxury sales, but as of now, they are only with the cars manufacturers. Is it going to stay there for the future? I personally think that the product is a luxury one, but the manufacturing is not a luxury one, i.e. is very different. So while in luxury, you have third-party manufacturing and is more a know-how driven as regard what is owned by the brands. In case of the cars, is not only know-how driven, what is owned by the brands, but is also the manufacturing. So they are the owner of the manufacturing chain. And it's a true heavy work. So it's completely different in terms of what you need to know, how you need to manage the manufacturing process. So I think that if the luxury groups, and clearly we are talking about the really big one, want to continue to grow in terms of size, sooner or later they can think about trying to buy a luxury cars brand. At the same time, I think that is very different from what they usually do, because you need to have manufacturing in place, and again, different. The distribution chain is completely different, and the fact that you need to give an after-sales service that is not the same of hard luxury or soft luxury is really a heavy one. So I think it's very different from what they do. And this translates also in a marginality that is different from what they do.
So maybe collaborations?
Yeah, I think that the collaboration, that by the way...
There was Gucci Fiat at one point.
That are already there.
Yeah.
I think that the collaborations are the way to go as regard the luxury cars, more than owning a luxury car brand.
But do you think there could be other verticals? So I just gave cars as an example. Do you think there could be other verticals where luxury groups could be vying into?
Look, I think that more than verticals, I think experience. So I give you an example. Prada, I think that they have a collaboration, I think, with SpaceX.
Okay, interesting.
So, it's not that, I'm not sure if it's SpaceX or something, anyhow, that has to deal with with traveling to the
Space.
to the moon. So I think that is more that kind of more than new verticals experience, or better, being part of experience that are completely different. But that they, at the end, if you think about the customers, are the same. Because whoever is going to pay whatever needs to be paid in order to go around the moon, most likely is also a customer for a luxury product in the more traditional way of being a customer of a luxury product. So you see, the ecosystem is the same and is there.
Yeah. They're more or less the same target audience.
Yeah, it's
Those
the
with
same.
super deep pockets.
It's the same target. And again, I think that Prada, which is a fantastic brand, I mean, think about what they have done with Luna Rossa. So when they started Luna Rossa, sailing was obviously already very well known, but there was not such a kind of media attention and people following it, no matter of the fact of being a sailor or not a sailor. And now with the American Cup, he has become more mainstream. So I think that without going to the extreme of the traveling to the moon, I think that is another very well example of a collaboration. Then it's a collaboration for something that is owned 100%, but is not immediately linked to a luxury product, but is a luxury event. And so as a luxury event, there is the customer base that is going to be the same, or anyhow, this lifestyle component is going to be there, and again, is going to create something that goes beyond the boundaries of the pure luxury products.
Well, staying back here on Earth, we talk about brands such as, for example, Lululemon, Nike, Birkenstock, and we look at their valuations, and some of them could be in the moon, and some of them could be still in the stratosphere, and some of them are still here on Earth. And we take a comparative look at those valuations, and we compare it to luxury group valuations.
Yeah.
Do you think that is going to be a period of time where they're going to meet, or how do you see this happening?
Another interesting question. I think that clear there the total addressable market, we are talking about trillion, not billion, because it's more mainstream. Is mainstream, although with a high marginality, and so you have the best of the two. So you have growth that is linked to trillion, and marginality that is comparable to the luxury product. So I feel that at the same time, setting aside the current moment where, again, the quiet luxury is very expensive. So a typical quiet luxury product is expensive. But otherwise, there is a general trend that is the democratization in luxury. So luxury become more accessible. I feel that and this will be more and more important with the new generations. And so I feel that the two will sooner or later overlap, at least in terms of customers. And if you think the North Face Gucci collaboration has been a way to put together two different communities. So at the same time, you got the luxury community and you got the outdoor community, and there has been an overlap. I think that this is a clear example of what could be. So is going in the medium future going to be a merger between one of the two groups, i.e. one luxury group and one, let's call it more lifestyle? I think so. And I think that if you look at what Kering did with Puma, probably has been done at the wrong time, i.e. probably not at the right moment. But the idea, I think, that was there. And maybe in the future is going to be done by someone else.
Maybe you can emphasize a bit about that, just in case some of our
Yeah,
listeners.
so basically, as you know, Kering bought out Puma. And then, they decided to change strategy. And so now they have a remaining stake, but not the majority of that.
Yeah.
But again, is an example of something luxury going to something that, probably not as in the case of so extreme as in the case of Nike, but has to deal with performance, has to deal with outdoor running, has to deal with sport.
Let me ask you from your experience.
Please.
Does the culture and the community define fashion, or does fashion define the culture and the community?
That's a very good question. I think the first one. You cannot, during this time and due to how the public has evolved, you cannot tell to the public what they need to wear. You cannot tell to the public what they need to buy. I think that because of a more self-confident customer, because of the capability to compare in a very, in a second, it's a question of a second. Now there is the public that is going to choose and is going to say, I want this and this is the style. And clearly, I'm just a banker, so I'm not one of the luxury executives, so more for them to comment. But my view is that the culture defines the community, the culture defines what the community wants, and at that point the community decide what is going to be in demand or not. Mm-hmm. And I think that is not anymore that if you spend tons of money in marketing, you will be successful, and if you don't do it, you are not. And some of the Italian brands are there to testify. So think about Moncler. It's not that they don't make marketing, but for sure, the marketing expenses of Moncler are much less than other brands. And at the same time, the brand is very, very successful.
It is. Yeah.
So, I feel that this evolution is also a very good thing for the smaller brands. Smaller, now Moncler is a 18 billion company in terms of market cap, so still is smaller than LVMH.
Yeah.
So is a way to give to these smaller brands the opportunity to become relevant, and in reality being the ones that be new and always have to create attention, are going to influence the people that then are the customer of the broad luxury space.
People nowadays are more and more conscious, self-conscious, driven towards sustainability. Do you think that sustainable practices are going to be a key moving forward, or they have been, but they're going to be even a bigger selling proposition for people that are looking for luxury and people that are looking, which brand I'm going to associate myself with?
I personally think so. And I think that this has to deal with the evolution of the customers. So, I think it's a general, so I'm not saying something that is new, that the new generations are paying more attention to the environment, to the, I would say, not only the environment, all that has to deal with how a company is dealing with the environment, the society. The most interesting thing at the same time is that being environment friendly has become a must for the corporates, for the brands, in order to attract the employees that they want. If you want to hire someone because he's a very good designer, is a very good manufacturer, whatever, you need to show that you are environmentally friendly. So I think that luxury is one of those sectors where the environmental let's say, driven attitude start from the companies and not from the customers. It's not that the customers are demanding and so the companies are reacting, but the companies within their own employee base needs to be at the forefront of the environment, being responsible with the environment. Then I feel that some of the brands are realizing that if they are able, for example, to give to the customer a clear view of how a particular product has been manufactured, so the customer is able to understand all the different steps, the customer is willing to pay even more. And so is going to pay in order to be part of something more responsible. And I think that this is another important point. Because if someone is willing to pay, it's because he's really pay attention to this. And we go back to the concept of the community, of the ecosystem. So if I'm also able to characterize myself as a environmentally friendly brand, the customer probably is going to stay there also in terms of fidelization. Prada, for example, is doing this with the nylon, or there are companies like, for example, Reformation in the US that have based their own success on the environmental friendly theme. So again, either you are 100% or anyhow, you have a big part of your business that is pay attention to this.
And another way where I think this industry is going to be shaped is through AI.
Yeah.
This is the new IT word that everybody's using. Can you please give us your insight about the importance of artificial intelligence and how it's going to play a role in this industry?
Look, for what I know, I think that for the moment is more about how you do things. And so I think that the luxury space is in the same position of other sectors. AI is a way to be better organized, know your customer in a better way. One very important thing within each luxury company is the CRM. And one very important figure within a luxury company is a merchandiser. So why the CRM and the merchandiser are so important and sometimes are, at least from the public, perceived as less important than they are. CRM, you know your customer. Knowing your customer means that you know what is buying, you know when is buying, you know where is buying, and so
how you can reach them.
So this is a way again to have your customer really part of your community. The merchandiser is key because it's the one that is going to translate what the designer has created, and maybe is beautiful from a style point of view, but maybe is not going demand because of different reasons. The merchandiser is the one that is going to be able to say, this is going to be a success, this maybe not. So, two way of looking at how you deal with the customer, or in case of the merchandiser, you think about how the customer is going to react. Now, I feel that whenever you see the artificial intelligence, probably, and again, I'm not an expert, but I think that is going to help on the CRM front, but is not going to do what the merchandiser is doing. Because we'll have to be more on the data processing that maybe is going to give to the merchandiser a better understanding of the situation. But at the end of the day, the human touch is going to be there. So I think that this is an industry where having to deal with how people, it's a discretionary spending. So it's about efficiency, but it's not only about efficiency. So I think that it will play a role, but it will play a role in the efficiency space. So for sure it's going to help the industry, but the designer role, the way of thinking about how to make a shop a successful one, which is an incredible part, because probably we as a customer don't realize, but whenever we enter a shop and we feel that the shop is an interesting one, is a good one, I think that behind that there is tons of work in order to understand how to make things done. So I think that this part of the job is difficult to think that is going to be done through AI. AI will help, but wouldn't be the final decision maker.
Well, what about, for example, AI helping in designing stuff?
In designing, yeah, absolutely. And also in preparing whatever is a show, preparing books and so on and so forth. But I think that we go back to the efficiency point, i.e., is the designer who decide how to do, and then the AI will be a way to do it better, to do it faster, or to add more inputs in order to decide what to do. I really think that the luxury lifestyle, the creativity component is going to stay there. And it's very difficult to think about this component without a strong involvement of the human being.
A few years ago, everybody was raving about the metaverse and fashion in the metaverse. And I think Gucci was selling a purse in the metaverse which was more expensive than a physical purse. Do you think this is actually gonna, now we have AI and we have the metaverse, and eventually I think there's gonna be a singularity point where things are gonna change drastically?
Look, as regards the metaverse, without naming, there was one French company thinking it's going to be a success, and the other thinking it's going to be a way to talk about luxury more than one of the main drivers of luxury. And quite frankly, I think that the second were the right one. And we go back to one point. You need numbers. Because at the end of the day, it has to deal with having a lot of customers, because there are a lot of brands. And so you need a lot of customers in order to keep demand for everyone. Even if you think that the metaverse is going to be a big thing in terms of attracting attention, I don't think that the big numbers are going to be there. And so I feel that, again, is a way to attract new customers, is a way to give to the customer the opportunity to make an experience, and so this is very important. At the same time, at least as far as I know, it's difficult about thinking about the fact that it will become a big theme in terms of numbers. In particular, I feel that was more for a situation of strong economy than a situation with certain hiccups.
Strong economy.
Yeah, I think so, because again, I feel that if the average customer have to choose between having a metaverse experience or having a real experience in terms of wearing something, most likely in an economic environment where he has to make the choice, either because he needs to or because simply he prefers to, I feel that he will go for the traditional way more than the new way.
Speaking of strong economies, and you had mentioned earlier India as an area where, as a country which has a lot of promise. What would it take for a country like India or for a place like Southeast Asia and China? What would it take for a luxury brand to develop from there, to become as big as a European one, for example?
Another very good question, and a question where I don't feel comfortable in answering because I don't want to. I tell you what I think. It doesn't mean that it's going to be the case. Luxury is about heritage. Even if it's a new brand, there is a heritage in doing something because you need to do a proper product. And so no matter what, if you offer something, unless you create it from scratch, which is not the case of luxury, because it's difficult to think about something that was not there. The metaverse is one example, and again, is a small thing. So you need heritage. And the customers are looking for that heritage. And so, although there are some examples in terms of designers, I don't think that the customers are looking for something that is completely new, because they have already an ample choice. And so I feel that the condition and the needs in order to have a local brand, I'm talking about luxury, I'm not talking about fast fashion,
no.
Because in fast fashion could be very different.
Of course.
But so something that is expensive, that needs to be well known, or if a niche one, anyhow strong. So I buy something that maybe is not well known now here, but I have seen that in another country that to a certain extent is a driver of the choices. So you can think about Italy or you can think about French, is going to be there. So I don't think that this kind of customers that I think are the majority of the customers of Far East are going to ask for this. So I prefer a bag that is already a well-known.
A Hermes.
Or, exactly. Or maybe the bag is new in terms of design, but the brand is very well known. Not only, again, because I'm a logo fan, but because also is a guarantee. And so whenever there is a competition that is not based on price, I feel that people prefer to stand with what they already know and has been already proved.
Tried and tested.
Yeah.
Has the legacy, has the heritage, as you said.
The legacy, yeah. At the same time, I don't feel that the government feels that being strong in such a sector, if you are not there yet, is something they need to pursue. So why to invest in order to create a giant in luxury? What you can see at the same time is a trend to repatriate the consumptions. So I feel that if you think about Far East and you think about China in particular, that's the trend. It's not that the government is saying, I want to reduce the consumption of luxury products from Chinese customers abroad, and so I create a China luxury brand. No, I create consumption within China. And so the duty-free area they are doing in Hainan, China duty-free, this kind of evolution. That I think is where the future will be different from the past. People that are going to be consumer of the same products, but in their home countries more than abroad. And that's the example of China.
It's an interesting insight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Roberto, every time I sit down with you, I learn a lot of new things.
No, you are, here Multiply, you know the sector well. So
thank you. Very flattering. We have a tradition at the end of the podcast where we ask a question.
Please.
Yeah. And the question is, if your life is a book, on which chapter are we in right now?
I think looking for the next one.
For the next
chapter? Chapter in the sense that in continuity with what I'm doing. So I feel I really like what I'm doing. I think that I choose investment banking because you are part of an interesting community. Talking with you, talking to companies, talking to investors, looking at situations. You help companies trying to realize their goals. And at the same time, I think that you need to continue to stay both in front of people and at the edge of the evolution. So the next chapter means being always up to the evolution of the time, up to the evolution of what customers want, and at the same time being where there is action. So, for example, Middle East now is clearly a very interesting area. One day will be India. I'm going to move to India in 5 years. I don't know. I don't think so, but who never know.
Take me with you.
We will.
Yeah, why not?
Thank you very much, man. It's been a pleasure as usual.
Always is. Thank you, Roberto. Thank you for joining us today. Stay tuned for our next episode.